Okay. So welcome everybody to our wine tasting. We're doing a brand spotlight on the Ophidian virtual tasting. Welcome to those present and welcome to those who aren't able to attend with us live tonight. For those who are live, again, feel free to turn on your cameras, feel free to turn on your mics. We love hearing your feedback, so we definitely want to hear some feedback and comments on the wines tonight. Um, Quick introductory. I am Erin. I'm a wine concierge here at Firstleaf. I have been with Firstleaf since September 2021, and I am joined by.
I'm Lauren, also a wine concierge with Firstleaf, and I've been with the company since April 2021. So just like a week shy of my 2-year anniversary.
All right. I can't believe it. The year is flying by, but yeah, it is already April. So,
Yeah.
So we are going to be tasting the Ophidian wines tonight. Go ahead and open the Ophidian Chenin Blanc, Ophidian Rosé, and then the Ophidian Shiraz. And we will be going in that order. We'll start with the Chenin Blanc. So just a little bit about Ophidian as the brand. If you have looked at any of the bottles yet, which I'm sure you all have, you see there is a snake on the label, which is fitting. Because Ophidian does have Greek origin and translates directly to the word serpent. We have decided that this brand and these wines fit perfectly within this brand because once we get to tasting, you'll start to notice they're all very smooth. They kind of glide over the palate. And as we continue to taste, the layers of flavor and the depth really starts to open up and just open up really smoothly and nicely. So we're excited to spotlight some of these. And I know that some of these too are some member favorites. So I'm really excited to get everybody to taste them and enjoy them. So if you haven't already, go ahead and pour a glass of the Chenin Blanc, a little taste. It's the 2021 Chenin Blanc. And this one is from Swartland, South Africa. All of these wines tonight are going to be from South Africa, and they are going to be from different regions. So we are going to start with Swartland, South Africa, which is where the Chenin Blanc is from. And then we'll move to Pietermaritzburg Kloof, which is where the rosé is from. And then we will end with the Western Cape. So we wanted to show you guys, everybody exactly where it is. So we're going to zoom down here to the bottom corner of Africa.
Yes. Just to give you kind of a full visual, that's the whole country of Africa. And then Western Cape, when you refer to that region, is all the way down here in the red.
Awesome.
Kind of give you a visual. And then
it's funny to me how large that country is, and for the, these areas to be so small down here in the bottom.
Yeah. And then down here we have Cape Town, which none of these wines are exactly from Cape Town, but we kind of refer to that as kind of a central point to talk about. So this is X distance from Cape Town. You kind of have a reference point for that. And here we've got Swartland, and that's the geographical region of Swartland. The wine region of Swartland really makes up kind of this whole up here, whole area here. Excludes Cape Town though.
Mm-hmm.
And then this little tiny town is Pietermaritzburg. And Erin will tell you more about that.
Yes. It's very tiny, but it's kind of one of those things where it's a region within a region. So Pietermaritzburg Kloof is within Swartland. Swartland is within Western Cape. So that's kind of how we're going to be looking at all of these wines tonight. So without further ado, we have the Chenin Blanc, which is from Swartland. So Swartland is known for its Chenin Blanc. It's about 40 meters north of Cape Town, very hot, very dry, and it forces these grapes to work really hard to ripen. So what will happen is these grapes work really hard. They produce very, very small concentrated grapes. And I think we'll be able to see that with this Chenin Blanc because it's very silky, very concentrated flavor, very rich flavor. And you know, of course, then still fitting within the Ophidian brand, very silky and rounded mouthfeel. So first step of the tasting process is to look. So I hope everybody has poured a glass, and we want to just take a look and see about the color. And the best way to do this is exactly how Lauren is, with a white piece of paper behind it, and that gives you a really true color to look at. So what is everybody's thought on the color of this one?
It's a beautiful golden color.
Yeah, I agree. It is really pretty.
Yeah, kind of a pale gold.
But I still see the richness in it too. It's pale, but definitely still very rich in its gold color.
Yeah.
We say that it's a color intensity of 2, and I think that that's pretty fitting.
Yep.
All right, let's give it a swirl. We want to give it a little bit of a swirl, or if you have an aerator to pour the wine through, that works too. Just gives it a little bit of air to open up, to breathe, to stretch its legs a little bit, and to kind of come to itself. So let's give it a swirl and see what we're getting on the nose.
And if you're having trouble picking out notes as you sniff, you can kind of hold your hand over the glass and it'll sort of isolate and isolate those aromas for you.
Yeah, Lindsay said, I love all the tasting parties. I do too. I love seeing everybody together, which that's kind of what wine does. It brings us all together, you know.
What are
I'm
you
getting a lot of stone fruit.
A lot of what?
Stone fruit, a little bit of peach, a little bit of kind of that. It smells like a sweeter, riper peach, maybe a little bit of apricot.
Yeah, I can see that. I wasn't getting it earlier, but I almost get a little bit of pineapple too.
Yeah, a little bit of that tropical fruit kicking in there.
Is anyone smelling anything differently?
I definitely smell the citrus in it.
Yeah.
A little bit of the like a peach.
Yeah, absolutely. We describe the aroma other than the peach and the stone fruit. We talk about Buddha's hand, and I'm not very familiar with Buddha's hand as its own fruit, but they say it's almost this citrus combination of lemon, lime, grapefruit, but not necessarily with that bite that comes along with it.
I see that.
Funny, we were just talking and said, you know, what's Buddha hand? Because I've never heard it before. So perfect.
Yes, I'm not very familiar with it myself. I don't know how common it is to find in the store, but Google says that it's those citrus combined. And then I think there was something else that it was crossed with too, Lauren. Do you remember what the other fruit was?
Is it yucca or something?
Or yuzu?
Something that started with a Y.
Yeah. But yeah, so super interesting fruit. But anyway, let's give it a sip and see if we get these same fruit flavors in the sips. Ashley says yuzu. Thank you, yuzu. And then Lindsay says it's a more mellow citrus. Awesome. Thank you for the confirmation. What do y'all think of your first couple sips?
It definitely is a little bit more mellow. It doesn't have that tart citrus.
Mhm.
Yeah, but you can definitely tell the citrus is there.
Mhm.
Mhm.
It's like a brightness almost, like, because I get the stone fruit, I get the apricot, which to me can kind of be a little bit richer of a fruit, but yeah, definitely something there to kind of brighten it up a little bit. What do you think of the body of this one? So Chenin Blanc is known to have that kind of silky texture. What are your thoughts about that? Do you get that silkiness? Do you get that heavier body?
Yeah, I feel like for a white wine, it's a little bit bigger body than what I'm normally tasting. It's pretty smooth.
Mhm. I agree. Chenin Blanc is interesting to me because it's one of those wines that, um, over the summer, it's still light and crisp enough and has that kind of lighter, brighter feeling, but it still has a nice mouthfeel, like you said, Ashley, that kind of fuller bodied, smooth. We label this as a 3, which is kind of about halfway on the scale of body. Would y'all agree that it's kind of right there in the middle?
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Definitely for a white.
Yeah. And
It
one of the
reminds me of, oh, sorry. It reminds me of drinking the syrup at the bottom of the can of canned peaches.
yeah, I can see that for sure. I love that description. We always kind of compare the body of a wine to milk, but thinking about it as kind of a syrup also makes sense to me too. But we say that a lighter bodied wine maybe is a 1% skim milk, and then maybe halfway would be like 2% milk, and then a really heavy bodied would be closer to whole milk, half and half, heavy cream. Tessa said the consensus here is that we can see drinking this in the pool. Absolutely. Absolutely. Definitely has just enough acidity, just enough sweetness to kind of give you that satisfaction during the summer for sure.
Yep.
So not only pairing it with pool sipping, what could you see yourself pairing with this food wise?
I see this going perfectly with like a nice brunch, like a quiche, a nice salad, I just really feel that it has enough body that it can carry itself, but still be perfect for like a light kind of meal.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I agree. And Tessa mentioned in the chat seafood, which I think is great as well. We actually do recommend seafood, veggies, stir fries, things that still are light, like you said, and but still can hold up to some of those heavier things. For sure. I find that it can go well with things that a Sauvignon Blanc or a Chardonnay would, because I feel like Chenin Blanc can kind of fall right in the middle of Sauvignon Blanc and Chardonnay. It has that light crispiness, but also a little bit heavier in body, a little bit of that creamy silkiness. So yeah, anything that you would pair those wines with, I think would also be great with this. But as Lauren knows, I'm not huge on wine and food pairing. I typically sip wine on its own, and I think this one's perfectly sippable on its own too.
Definitely. Or even just something light like cheese tray.
Yeah. Yeah. Perfect. I think so too. Any last questions about Chenin Blanc or about this Chenin Blanc, or any thoughts before we move forward?
No.
All right. Cool.
All right. Well, next up is the rosé. And we do this generally, you taste wines from lightest to darkest or lightest to heaviest. So that's why we're going Chenin Blanc rosé. As we may or may not find, I don't want to give away any spoilers, the rosé might not be as heavy as the Chenin Blanc, but we still decided, based on how it tastes, that we wanted to taste this one second. So this is, as we said, this one's from the Pekingese clove. Look up the spelling of that very tricky word, but it's Pekingese clove, South Africa, which is, as we kind of saw on the map, it's about 110 miles north of Cape Town, down there on the coast. Pekingese clove's known for having some of the oldest vines in Western Cape and for being higher elevation wines. It's kind of up in those mountain ranges that you might have noticed on the map. And so that kind of forces the fruit to develop a little bit of a thicker skin, which gives the grape a little bit more of a color and flavor intensity and makes it a little bit more concentrated. And then rosé in general, if you're not super familiar with it, is made the exact same way as a red wine is made. The wine ferments, and you do that with the wine on the skins. Red wine just stays on the skins for a little bit longer, and that's what gives red wine its deeper color. Rosé stays on the skins for maybe just a couple of days or so, and that gives it the lighter color. You can make rosé by blending white and red. It's a little bit less common. That's traditionally referred to as a blush. This one we know is a rosé because we know it's 100% Rosé of Grenache. So we know it was made with Grenache grapes, just a little bit of skin contact to give it that pink color. So let's take a peek. What do we see? What are you thinking? Or how would you label this color? I don't know if my lighting is super true here, but I think it's pretty accurate.
Yeah, it looks pretty accurate. This is like a darker rosé in my opinion.
I was gonna say almost like pink with salmon, because I think the lighter rosés tend to be more salmon, but this still leans on like the pinker side. You know,
it's got a little bit more of almost like a deeper jewel toned salmon. Not that I think of salmon with jewel tones, but
well, I was gonna say, I feel like we because I think we did this one in our rosé tasting, and it was like a rose gold is what I could come up with, like almost this copper rose gold kind of jewel.
yeah, definitely. All right, well, let's give it a swirl and a sniff. And if you are new to the tasting process, don't be afraid to really stick your nose down in the glass. That's where you get the most aromas. But like I said, if you swirl it and then kind of cover the glass with your hand, that'll help you identify some of those aromas as well.
I'm really getting a lot of watermelon this time. A lot of watermelon, but almost like a little bit of sweetness with that too.
Yeah.
Like a watermelon Jolly Rancher.
Yes. Yeah. I was going to say, because it almost has like a candied kind of aroma.
Lindsay said pink lemonade, and I do get a little bit of citrus. I think she was describing the color, but I do get a little bit of citrus in the nose too, which kind of tricks my brain into thinking of pink lemonade also.
Yeah, that's really what I get. And it's not slight. I didn't have to like really reach for that aroma. Like it was pretty powerful for me.
Do you get any bubble gum? That's one of the tasting notes for the aromas that we list online and on the cards.
When you mentioned that, yes, maybe that, like, because for me, I was thinking that candied, almost that, like the Sour Patch watermelons, that kind of aroma. But when it says bubblegum, yes, I can definitely translate it into that too.
The like raw, sugary, like fruit by the foot, or not fruit by the foot. What was that bubble gum that came in the spool?
Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about, but I cannot think.
Bubba Bubba.
Yeah. Hubba Bubba. Yep. Yeah, and bubble tape. It smells like Hubba Bubba, but bubble tape. I think that's what I was thinking of. Yeah.
And then Tessa and Ashley both say tart apple.
Yeah.
I get that too.
All right, well, let's take a sip. Before Erin answers, what is anybody else? What is anybody else tasting?
It's like surprising, like it's really nice. Like I wasn't expecting the flavor that you're getting out of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's those concentrated flavors from growing at that higher elevation.
Mm. And I still too, I think sometimes with rosé, they can be a little tart and you get kind of that bite with it, but I don't with this one. It still has that kind of smooth, silky mouthfeel.
Just like a snake.
Just like a snake.
Very smoothly.
That's right. Even though still it has that brightness, I agree, that kind of, nice flavor with it.
Yeah, it is very smooth.
Mm.
So I mentioned earlier, this might not be quite as heavy as the Chenin Blanc. What does everybody think for the body? Would you agree it's lighter than the Chenin Blanc?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Lighter, a little smoother.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. Typically you would, kind of like I said earlier, you would taste in the order of lightest to heaviest. But since the flavors in this are so concentrated, that's why we decided to taste this one second.
Mm-hmm. And I think the flavor, I still stand with that. I still think the flavor profile of this one comes through much more. I don't necessarily get the watermelon on the flavor palette. I do get more of a red fruit, something like that, but much more powerful, much more concentrated.
Like a sweeter strawberry, not a tart strawberry, but a little bit of a sweeter.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I think the
Cheers.
flavors are more intense than the Chenin Blanc.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely. Is anybody getting a little bit of like a minerality or salinity to this one?
I do think it finishes clean. I do get that it's always kind of hard for me to pick out minerality, but one of the things that I kind of look for is like how long it lingers, but then does it linger with a fruit flavor? Does it linger with some sort of other flavor? And for me, it finishes very clean and not something to where it's so heavy on my palate. And so to me, I think that maybe that translates to minerality.
Yeah, it sounds silly and odd because you would never actually do this in real life. But if you imagine yourself like picking up a stone after it rains and licking it, that's what I always associate like minerality and the wet stone note with. I can imagine what that would taste like. I would never do it in real life, but I can imagine what licking a wet stone would taste like. And that's kind of in my mind how I picture minerality. And then salinity, I think it differs a little bit. It has a little bit more of that like salty taste.
Yeah.
But
Maybe
usually either of those notes in wine come from coastal influence, which this one does have, being so close to the coast.
Yeah. I think sometimes too, maybe minerality can be translated instead of licking the rock, after like a fresh rain during the summer and you go outside and you kind of get that smell of like it kind of evaporating off of the rocks and the road and things like that.
Yeah.
Maybe translating that into what a taste would be if you're not into rock licking.
All right. Well, is anybody getting anything else flavor wise that we haven't talked about? Yeah. Minerality is like the earthy, one of the earthy characteristics of a white wine or a rosé. You don't necessarily find minerality so much in in a true red.
Yeah. As far as other flavors, I don't necessarily get that bubblegum watermelon that I was smelling, but I do get maybe a little hint of like underripe peach, underripe stone fruit, like at the finish of it.
Yeah. What about the acidity? We talked about how the Chenin Blanc, we could kind of really identify the acidity. Do you think this is fairly acidic?
You definitely tell the tones of the acidity in it, but it's still balanced. Like it's not overpowering.
Yeah, definitely. And one trick for identifying acidity is to take a sip of wine, sort of hold it in your mouth a little bit, swallow, and then hang your head down and count the seconds, how long it lingers. And the longer your mouth is watering indicates higher acidity in the wine. So I saw Erin kind of hang her head. What did you get? What did you count to?
Do that. And I got about the 3. It was, I mean, and it may just be because my taste palate's a little bit more sensitive to acidity and things like that, but 3, maybe even a little bit more, but not in a harsh way.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes. Like Eileen and company said, it's very balanced.
Yeah, for sure.
So I've never really been like one for rosés. Yeah, I would love to learn like more about them. I mean, is it, better for like certain dishes, or is there certain occasions to have a rosé versus, any one of the whites per se, or any one of the reds?
I would say, well, the kind of saying goes, rosé goes with everything, or pink goes with everything. So they pair wonderfully with a lot of different dishes. If you're having company and they prefer red wine, you might have a red and maybe also a rosé. If you think a white or a rosé would pair better with what you're serving, you might be able to nudge that red drinker in the rosé direction. I think they're great by the pool, occasion wise, or like barbecue, just porch sipping. I think a lot of people associate rosé with spring and summer versus winter. I tend to like them year round, but that's just a personal preference. This one, oh, go ahead.
So that's good to know. Like I have a lot of family who likes sweeter whites, but they're afraid to try a red. This might be a nice option to kind of sway them a little bit to that direction.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
I agree. And I am with Lauren. I'm kind of a rosé all year round. And because it's so easy to pair with food, I think it's great for holiday get-togethers and potlucks, and where you don't necessarily know what everybody's bringing to eat. But in regards to something for your friends who aren't, who want a sweeter rosé or something like that, I kind of put rosés into different categories. We have some, there are rosés that are more delicate, like this one, where the flavors are a little bit lighter, a little bit, even though we've said this has a more potent flavor profile, but I would consider this one a little bit lighter. You can also get rosés from California, or we have some from Chile that are more berry focused, like raspberry, blackberry, and those are just a different representation of rosé, but they're both really great options. And I feel like the ones that are more berry, like the raspberry, blackberry, have just a little bit more sweetness to them, even though it's not sweetness, it's just a little bit fruitier, in my opinion.
Going from a red drinker and trying to get them to try rosé, we'd recommend those more berry focused rosé flavors. If you're going the opposite, white drinkers, and trying to convince them to drink rosé, you'd want to go with something like this. Most of the South African rosés that we've found tend to be a little bit more of that lighter, delicate style, or like a French rosé. The provincial style rosés are really, really light. You get that, the minerality really comes out with those, a lot of floral notes to those, which are super similar to your white wines.
Mm-hmm. And
Great.
Tessa mentioned that she sees this with finger foods watching football. Agreed. You know, again, it's one of those things where you aren't sure what everybody's bringing to the party. I think a rosé is a good one to kind of pair with something super easily.
Yep. Summer potlucks,
Mm-hmm.
brunches.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It goes with everything.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, any other questions about rosé? This wine in general? No?
All right. Well, let's move on to our red. This is the Ophidian Shiraz. This is going to be from the Western Cape region. So whenever we were zoomed out on Africa and we saw the portion highlighted down at the bottom, that is the Western Cape. So this is obviously where majority of South Africa's grapes come from. It's between the mountains, the Atlantic Ocean, and so there's just so much opportunity for different styles of wine to come from this region. Shiraz itself is a small, thick-skinned grape, so you get a lot of that deeper color, richer flavor. And this one in particular is from an area that has more of a Mediterranean climate. It gives them those warm days to really ripen, cool nights so they don't ripen too fast. And it just has a really nice balance of really juicy, fruity flavor, but then also a good balance of not being overly sweet and, you know, that overripe flavor. So let's go ahead and take a look and see what we think of the color of this one, if we can see some of that richness in the color.
Here we go.
Yeah, what do y'all think?
Oh. It's very dark.
Yeah. A dark purple for sure.
I'm losing my natural light here.
Yeah.
I'm using my computer screen light. It does have that deep purple.
Absolutely.
Like a raisin color.
A raisin color? Yeah, I can see that for sure.
Yep.
It gets a little bit lighter at the edge, and I think that's where I really see that raisin color coming through, but definitely. All right, let's give it a swirl and see what we think of the smell.
It's strong.
Very different than what we've been smelling. What's everybody think?
You can like smell the earth tones in it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I get almost like a little bit of an herbal kind of aroma.
That balsamic really just like jumps out at me in particular.
Yeah. I get a little bit of that at the finish. I think for the most part, I'm with Eileen. I get almost this earthy, herby green, which is interesting because I typically have a hard time picking those out in reds, but I'm getting it a lot in this one.
Yeah. It's funny, the girls were saying like you could almost like feel it in your sinuses, like when you smell this one compared to the others. It's very bold.
Yeah.
Might also be the alcohol content.
Well, yeah, that's true. 14.5, yeah.
It's a little heavier, a little higher.
So we have, balsamic herbs. Michelle says maybe like a salad dressing. Tessa's neighbor says so far this is the favorite aroma of the three. So, all right. So we've got some opinions. So let's take a sip and see if it carries through. Was it consistent with what you were smelling, or something different now that you've had a sip?
It gets fruitier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was anticipating something really bold, kind of smack you in the face with flavor, and it does smack me in the face with flavor, but it's still smooth and fruitier. Yeah, much fruitier than I was anticipating.
What would you say the tannins are like on this one? Oh yeah, I agree with
So,
blackberries too.
oh yeah, Tessa says blackberries. Yeah, for sure. I don't get, I mean, it's structured. It's not something that I feel like is flabby or, you know, lacking in anything, but it's smooth. I don't think the tannins are super sticky or, they don't make me think I need to rush for a sip of water. And kind of one of the tannins are kind of one of those interesting, weird things to talk about and kind of hard to pick out if you don't know what they are. So tannins come from the skins of a red grape. And one of the ways that I learned about tannins was if you get a red grape, peel the skin off and just eat the skin, it's that kind of bitter, dry, almost like your tongue is sticking to the top of your mouth kind of feeling, yet flavor as well. So they can be chewy, they can be almost like maybe a dusty feeling, they can be slippery, we've said before, if it's something that just is real slick. These I don't think are slippery, but they're definitely not chewy. They're present, but really well balanced, in my opinion. I've also heard somebody say it's almost like fuzzy sweaters on your teeth is how a tannin feels to them.
Yeah, I can just barely feel them in this on the kind of the tip of my tongue.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. For sure. So what other flavors? Do you get any sweetness of the fruit? Do you get any sort of secondary flavors beyond fruitiness?
Yeah, you can definitely tell the berry like mix that's in it. It's just not overpowering, but it's just, again, nicely balanced. We have some chocolate here, so we're having some chocolate with it, and it's just like the perfect combination.
It tastes really good with chocolate.
Yeah. I had
That's
it
with pairing.
I had it with raspberry dark chocolates, and it was
Oh, I didn't think of that. It would have been better.
yeah, it was
Well, it's funny, we actually have the tasting notes say raspberry, chocolate, and balsamic. So that raspberry chocolate, and even pairing it with the chocolate that you're pairing it with, Eileen, I think is perfect. And then Julie says a hint of black pepper at the finish. Is it at the finish or just in general, a hint of black pepper in the flavor? Let's see.
I see the pepperiness.
Mm.
Not necessarily on the finish, towards not to
Towards
get
the top,
technical, like the mid palate.
Yeah, I do too. Now that it's mentioned, I get it kind of at the top too. A little bit of that herbiness that I was smelling at the beginning is now starting to come in as well, kind of in that same area where the pepper does. But still very smooth, not anything that's like harsh and biting or anything like that. But we do give this one a sweetness of 3. Do y'all agree with that? Do y'all disagree with that? Do you think it's drier? Do you think it's sweeter?
Sounds about right.
Yeah. Yeah. It's fruity, but not anything aggressively sweet. It's just kind of easy drinking to me. But talking about food pairings, we do recommend to pair it with things like chocolate. I think that'd be a great pairing, but we also recommend for more on the savory side, pastas, grilled meats, beef stew, those kind of heavier, richer, creamier kind of foods. Yeah, Tessa says chocolate, steak, heartiness. I definitely agree with that. I think that this would stand up to some of those heartier meals. For sure.
I could even picture this with, I guess you mentioned baked pastas with like a red Italian sauce almost.
Ooh, yeah. I'm not a huge red sauce person, but
I'm
I
not
think
either, so that's kind of weird for that to come to the front of my mind, but
maybe it's the herbiness because I feel like a tomato sauce has a lot of herb in it, and maybe it's that carrying over.
yeah.
We do a bunch of gourmet pizzas on Friday, and I'm thinking this is like the perfect wine to like have around the pizza oven.
Yep.
Yes, I definitely agree. I think Shiraz in general would be great for pizza because it has a lot of that flavor up front, but it doesn't linger too long. But it stands up to the pizza without overpowering the pizza.
Yeah, I could see this with like a sausage pizza
Yeah.
Yes.
with like the spicy notes.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh,
Man.
pink sauce.
I'm telling you, talking about pizza. I love that. And then, yeah, Michelle says a pink sauce, like a vodka sauce. Yeah, I think that that'd be great too. For sure.
Eileen, speaking of pizza, if you guys do gourmet pizzas, the rosé would do really well with like a white sauce, a white pizza.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
good. Like I did one last week with like butternut squash and goat cheese and onions, and I think something like this would be like a nice like pairing with that.
Yeah.
Oh my
That sounds
gosh,
good.
you're not kidding. That is a gourmet pizza. I'm telling you. I love that.
We like to try different things.
Yeah. Well, I think that all of these wines would pair well with probably any of those pizzas because they're all so different and would pick up on different things. But does anybody have a favorite wine of the night? I think my
like-
favorite. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I tend to like white wines, so I like the Chenin Blanc, but it looks like Tessa's group is saying they like number 3. Sounds like a
Yeah.
lot of people like the Shiraz.
Yes. Julie and Tessa both like the Shiraz the best. Okay. Now that I'm sipping on it, of course, I like it the best because it's the most recent one. But I tend to do reds typically, but I do like a good Chenin Blanc because I like the really nice, heavy, silky mouthfeel of it.
Yeah, that's a great point or question, whatever you want to call it, Tessa. She'd written Syrah, then said, sorry, Shiraz. They're the same grape. It just depends on where it comes from is traditionally what garners the name. Shiraz is what they refer to it in Australia as. Syrah is more of the old world name for the wine. And then in like the US and in South Africa, you'll find a little bit of both.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually pleasantly surprised with the rosé. Like that was my favorite. I mean, I love red wines. I'm all about the reds, but the rosé really surprised me.
It's really smooth and easy drinking.
Absolutely. What do you girls like?
I like the Chenin Blanc. That was my favorite. Mine was also the rosé.
Nice.
Kind of even split, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Which is fun.
My
That's
mom and my sister are here. They're not on camera, and we usually do these tastings together. And rarely do all 3 of us like all 3 of the wines, but this time around, all 3 of us are like, I drink all 3 of these.
awesome.
So thankful for that second bottle. That's awesome. That's awesome. Good. Well, I'm glad. I know the Ophidians we work with members that sometimes like all reds, sometimes like all whites, but typically I hear really good things about the Ophidian wines. So I'm glad to see that that y'all like all of them. So that's great. That's great. Well, awesome. Does anybody have any questions or last minute comments about any of the wines?
Yeah, if not, we'll let you get back to your respective parties.
That's right. I know. Everybody's having a great time. Well,
Erin and Lauren, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, we love these.
absolutely. Yeah. I'm glad that y'all were all able to join. And sometimes if y'all have been on a tasting before, you know that it's just the two hosts. So I'm always glad to be able to interact with members directly.
Yes, this was wonderful. Thank you so much.
So we're glad you enjoyed it.
Yes. So we are wine concierges. What we do typically is talk with you guys about your specific preferences. We help personalize club orders. We can help make adjustments to your accounts to kind of help things to be a little bit more personalized. So if you ever are interested in working with one of us, I will drop the link to the teams. Oh, Lauren did. To our team calendar. There's Lauren and I, and then you've probably seen Lindsay and Tori as well. We all really enjoy talking with our members, so never hesitate to book an appointment with us if you need help with picking wines or pairing wines for specific things. We really enjoy talking with the members. So yeah, definitely reach out to us and we'll chat with you more.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank y'all. Thank y'all. And everybody have a great night. And we will see you guys soon, hopefully for another tasting.
Bye.
Bye.
Cheers.
Cheers.